Welcome back to the Arise interview. I'm Charles Enyegolu. Now let's talk about the potential abuse of the judicial process in Nigeria, which has led the Chief Justice of the country to summon 6 state chief judges to come and explain what's going on in this regard. It's all about ex-parte orders, which is a way of getting an important issue in front of a judge and securing an immediate ruling. However, these orders can often bring about certain dangers. For example, the orders are made without a full hearing on the merits, making them an attractive target for abuse. And that appears to be what's happening in Nigeria. A wave of conflicting ex parte orders issued with regard to various political cases from courts in the south, southeast, and northwest regions of Nigeria. It's emerged that the country's National Judicial Council, which is responsible for the discipline of judges, had previously warned judicial officers to be circumspect in granting ex parte applications. Well, for more on this, I'm joined now in the studio by the chairman of Nigeria's National Interest Forum and former presidential candidate, Shitu Mohammed Kabir, and by Arise Director of News and Political Editor, Sumner Sambo. And a quick apology there. We were supposed to have Femi Falana, but he texted me about 20 minutes ago to say he's held up and he can't make it, so we'll have to leave that for another day. But both of you are here, and we're happy that you are. Thank you very much indeed for joining us. First of all, let me ask you, because you're a politician, and you're being held, not you particular, but I mean the politicians are being held responsible for all the confusion that's going on right now politically and with the judiciary. Do you see the judiciary being abused in Nigeria as a result? All these conflicting ex parte orders, the apparent disregard for the professional values of the law, etc.?
Thank you, Chief Enyegolu. If it was in the day of Justice Enyegolu, I would have said no.
Right.
Because those are people that stand their feet. But this day, I think they are politicizing the judiciary too.
They?
Yeah, some are.
You're a politician as well.
Some people are politicizing. They are becoming politicians because what people does now is after election, you make sure you go to election, but make sure you have the judiciary by your side. Then the next thing is judiciary giving you the seat, which in the democratic setting, supposed not to. The judiciary, the executive, and the legislature is supposed to have separation of power. But even when you have that separation of power, you must also have the doctrine of checks and balances.
Absolutely.
I think it's that checks and balances that we have not been able to put in place that allow judiciary, some of them, to act the way they are acting. And if we not, as people, we must as quickly as possible make sure that checks and balances, the doctrine of checks and balances come up. If not, that is the area that they could derail the democratic process that we are enjoying today.
That's a very good point. And on that note, let me bring you in, Sumner Sambo, Arise Political Editor and Director of News, because obviously, as he pointed out, it's one thing to abuse the system, quite another to respond promptly to that abuse. Is that abuse, which is the other side of responsibility, are you impressed with the way the Chief Justice has responded? Well, I mean, we don't know what he's doing for a start, but at least he's summoned them.
It's a very good decision, and let me just state it clearly that the Chief Justice can only bring these Chief Judges together. He cannot absolutely tell them, you must do this or do that, because there's independence between the states. I mean, the states have their own independence, they operate their own systems alongside the federal system. And so what the Chief Judges would be summoned to do is to actually provide explanation why this is on the rise and why politicians tend to visit state high courts rather than federal high courts, because it looks like the politicians are patronizing the state high courts because judges under the state high courts are easily susceptible to being in one way or the other, being
manipulable.
Yeah, manipulated or, being coerced in one way or the other to be able to do this. Maybe they are looking for their next promotion or something like that, something that's just to, give way. But it all points down to the system of discipline we have in the country. And that's the system of discipline for judges is that we, as the public, are the ones that judges are supposed to be accountable to. Now, in other societies you go to, you see that the National Judicial Council, which is supposed to discipline judges, is not supposed to be populated by judges. Because this is a set of judges judging judges.
That's a very good point. But let me ask you this, because the Chief Justice is part of that National Judicial Council. So, and the Judicial Council is there to discipline judges. Does that then give him the authority under the cloak of the National Judicial Council to take action if he finds that these judges did the wrong thing?
Yes. The NJC is an institution, so it's not necessarily about the Chief Justice of Nigeria himself, because it's not the Chief Justice that will sit down to listen to all of this and discipline the judges. It's a set of people who populate that institution. Now, what I'm saying is that in other societies, you see that institution being populated, including, people from the human rights communities, people from the civil society, people from the media, because it looks like the Nigerian society has left judges to judge judges who err. There's a sort of sympathy for some of the judges even when they go wrong. And so the punitive measures that are supposed to be handed down to judges who abuse ex-parte orders do not come very fast. So because the process of the NJC is very long, it takes time before judges are disciplined. Now ask yourself, Charles, why are these ex-parte orders coming more when the judiciary is on break? Now, the vacation judges need to be questioned. Is there a problem with vacation judges? Why are they being influenced more? Take example at the judgment that was initially given by Rivers State High Court in Port Harcourt that suspended the national chairman of Nigeria's major opposition party, the PDP. Now, the judge did not listen to the national chairman before suspending him. That's the opposition leader, official opposition leader in the country. And so once you just ask that the national chairman should be suspended from his position without even hearing from him, then the question beggars belief. What exactly is so important that you wouldn't have to hear from him before suspending him?
Absolutely.
So this calls to question the issuance of ex-parte orders. And the NJC had previously stated that the issuance of ex-parte orders should be reduced because even the government could be abusing the processes. Now, until we strengthen the process and speed up the process of disciplining judges who err by the NJC, there's a tendency that the judges will continue to abuse the process and politicians will continue to influence judges to abuse the process.
Excellent analysis there. Let me bring you in, Mr. Shitu, because I mean, you are obviously a politician.
Yes.
You were a presidential candidate.
Yes.
What is it about ex parte orders? I mean, it's usually granted as a way of preventing harm being done to the litigant. How does that prevail in the situation of a political party, for instance, wanting to get rid of their chairman or whatever?
That is why it's good, as you said, that those judges, I brought about checks and balances.
Well, you raised the question.
I raised the question of checks and balances because, and then this judicial financial autonomy, so that they can be able to be on their self, and there will be no any influence from either government or the opposition. And why people go for ex-parte order is to hasten maybe perpetuate anything you hear ex-parte order today politically is just to perpetuate something extra ordinary.
To get your personal wishes
that's
through.
As extraordinary, which it will be of benefit to them. And for us, some of us believe that is not the way.
Okay, let me ask you to hold that thought. We'll come back and you'll continue. We've just got to take a break. You're watching The Arise interview. Plenty more still ahead as we continue our chat about the abuse of the court process in Nigeria and the dangers of ex parte orders. Stay with us. Welcome back to the Arise interview, where we speak to the newsmakers as well as ordinary people doing extraordinary things around the world and featuring the voices at the heart of the stories. I'm Charles Aniegolu. Now let's continue our chat about the abuse of the court process in Nigeria. It's been called a wrecking ball in motion, the downside of the legal system in this country, something that can cause significant harm to the integrity of the judiciary and to Nigeria's fragile democracy. It's led the Chief Justice of the country summoning 6 state chief judges over conflicting orders issued by their courts with regard to political cases. So what are the dangers of ex-parte orders, and why have they become an attractive target for abuse by politicians in Nigeria? Well, with me, the chairman of Nigeria's National Interest Forum and former presidential candidate, Shitu Mohammed Kabir, and of course, Arise Director of News and Political Editor, Sumner Sambo. Thank you for staying with us. And before we went on a break, you were telling us about the reason so many political parties and politicians tend to go for ex-parte orders.
Yes, because, you know, for you to lose, you have to do something extraordinary to win. Because the offices...
Or to win something.
To win or to whatever,
right.
And however you are going to win. Because we have made the office so attractive, so lucrative, that it has become an industry. Therefore, you do everything possible. And that is why you can give anything to judiciary just to get there, or to get power to also negotiate. And that is very bad for our democratic process, and it's also very bad for the economic of the country.
And is that one of the things that your National Interest Forum, because I know it's a group set up to try and bring rectitude to the things that are going wrong in Nigeria. Is that one of the things that you're looking at?
It's one of it. Even as chairman of Inter-Party Advisory Council, we brought a lot of bills into National Assembly where we are saying all these abuses, because you have to look at what is causing the desperation. What causes the desperation is winner takes all. And what causes more of it is that whatever you get, if you have 51 and somebody got even 49, you that take 51 go for 4 years, and the 59 have to wait for another 4 years. And if there's no way that he can propagate his own ideology. So we have to move from this money and business political system into ideological political system. If you have an ideological political system, you found out that people are not talking of money. People are not even talking of going to judiciary. People are talking of how to propagate their ideology, how to propagate how the country will be better for all. I think this is what we are coming out to preach to Nigeria.
Yeah, but I mean, you talk about that. Is that because, I mean, you yourself have crossed from one party to the other. I mean, you were a presidential candidate in 2019 for a particular party, then you crossed over to the ruling APC party. Is that crossover motivated by what? Because you speak of ideology, but clearly there's no ideological difference there, is there?
As APDA, when we were propagating our ideology, our ideology of APDA is how the country will be better for all, how we see ourselves as one entity, not as ethnic or a group. We want to see a country where economic development is in the front burner of our political system, than thinking of when my ethnicity will get it, or when will I talking of national cake. No, but what I can contribute to build the country that will work for all of us.
Right. Okay. Well, we're going to come back and talk about that, because that's one of the reasons, I mean, you came here in the first place. But let's return to the issue of ex-parte orders. What do you think, Sumner, persuades these judges to hear these cases in favor of the applicants and to grant these so-called interim reprieves to them?
Okay, well, very interesting, Charles, that you're asking this. Let's state it very clearly. Ex-parte orders have been put in place to help give reprieve to those who need it urgently. So there's a good aspect of it. That is to prevent a much more powerful person from using the weight of his or her office or institution to actually do something before your case is heard. So in this instance, yes, you could actually run to the court and the judge will just say, look, I'm issuing out this ex-parte order for everyone to maintain the status quo, maintain it until I've heard this case, and then the case is determined, then before eventually judgment will be passed and all of that. But of course, there has been an abuse, especially within the political system, because of the failure of conflict resolution mechanisms within political parties. There's a destruction of the internal democracy system of our political parties. And as long as politicians do not fix their political parties very well, the next option that they have is to jump to the courts. And once they finish corrupting their political parties and disrupting the processes that they themselves have agreed as conflict resolution mechanism, they now go to the courts and try to also corrupt the processes of the courts. Because if you're not trying to corrupt the processes of the court, why is it that you're seeking an urgent interim order to stop someone from advancing his particular decision or to go somewhere? Take a very clear instance at the Anambra elections that are forthcoming on November 6th. Almost the major political parties are facing constant crisis because of the failures of the internal conflict resolution mechanisms within their parties. Talk of the PDP, you have so many groups going to court, this one interim injunction here, and all of that. Even the leadership of the political parties are finding it difficult. Look at
but the issue
Abga.
is not whether the politicians are seeking that sort of redress from the courts. Why are the courts bowing to that pressure?
Well, sometimes they come with a facade that makes the judge think that it's important to just grant this, because they will just come to the court and say, look, Judge, I'm seeking urgent protection from you right now, because if you don't do this, the time you may...
And democracy will collapse.
They'll just say democracy will collapse. You just have to do this now, because if you don't do it, they will submit the list to INEC, and once INEC takes the decision, it will take a long period of time. So the judge, in trying to see how they will arrest this situation, they will fall into it. But sometimes the judges will discover that most of the documents that are presented, even by lawyers, senior lawyers, were not really the situation. It was not really the situation, but because that is what was presented to them, and judges work based on documents and facts presented to them at that time.
They're simply interpreters.
They will have to just grant reprieve, so that it doesn't look like that it's because of the failure of their actions that a particular party was injured. But the thing is that if the abuses are becoming so much, and then look at, for example, the aspect of ABGA, the All Progressives Grand Alliance, which is the ruling party in Anambra State, where you had these 3 or 4 groups all having court injunctions. And the major problem was that they were getting these court injunctions from courts of coordinate jurisdiction. Courts that have concurrent powers. Now, they will go to Brendan Kebbi in Kebbi State, get a judge. You will go to Jigawa, get a judge. You go to Oka, get another one. You go to Imo. Now, why is the other party not going to the Court of Appeal? Because if you go to the Court of Appeal, the Court of Appeal as an appellate court will help to provide a judgment that will almost stop the other junior courts from determining that. But because they know that they may not have all the facts to actually win the case, they prefer to be doing what's called forum shopping. Shopping for court judgments from courts of coordinate jurisdiction. And it's a big challenge. That's why you've seen the Chief Justice of Nigeria asking these chief judges to come, because it's the chief judges that actually assign the judges of this state high courts.
That's a very good analysis. And let me bring you in, Mohammed, Mr. Mohammed. I mean, what do you expect the Chief Justice of Nigeria to do in these circumstances, wearing your National Interest Forum hat, where you're trying to have a transformative influence in Nigeria? Is it just an open discussion? Would that satisfy you, or would you like to see him leap down from a great height on these judges?
It has to bring out disciplinary measure, and he has to put limit to the type of ex-parte order you can give, and if you go beyond this, you could be punished, and probably put a committee which you take very serious judges to look.
Yeah, but as Sumner pointed out, I mean, the judges have a certain measure of autonomy. They have to be able to make decisions without pressure. I mean, they've got to determine situations based on what they see in front of them.
Yeah, but there are certain things as a judge that you see. And I'll give you an example with myself sitting with you. We have Justice Halilu in the state FCT High Court here. I was taken to court when I was to lead APDA, and they asked for ex-parte order to stop me. And on a second note, he said, I've not heard from this man. I will not give ex-parte order. Call him to inner chamber. And he called me, and we all sat down. Then he said, you want me to give ex-parte order? This is the man you brought. Can you repeat? And by the time he heard my own side, he said, no, I will take it until he drop it. He dropped issue of ex-parte order. He said, okay, come for the real case. And these are what the measures. Other judges, I wouldn't have been chairman of APDA, even to have become the presidential candidate, if at that moment he has given that ex-parte order without hearing from me.
Which is the most dangerous. You may have an ex-parte order tomorrow stopping President Muhammad Buhari or any other future president from doing his or her job.
Absolutely.
And that's why we've seen also some court orders that will purportedly be asking institutions, different institutions, not to do their job. For example, you ask the National Assembly not to perform its own job. Meanwhile, there's we've had various court judgments that stated it clearly, the Supreme Court stated it clearly, no arm of government can stop another government from performing its function. The Federal Executive Council cannot stop the judiciary from performing its function. So the judiciary should also not stop the National Assembly from performing its function, because they are all enjoying separation of powers, all working in the interest of the public. That's why I said we have to understand the position of the judiciary in the kind of democracy we practice. Because if not, imagine a court granting an ex-parte order on the Independent National Electoral Commission not to hold the presidential election. That's a recipe for anarchy.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And just to finish your thought, I mean, what sense do you have of what the solution should be? You were on that trajectory.
The solution is for first of all, put up measures, as I've said. And secondly, judicial, we have to now have a reform in the judiciary system and look at how this ex-parte order, there must be reasons that will be proclaimed or given out that until it get to this level before you can give any ex-parte order. And that for you to even start ex-parte order, you must call both parties into your chamber as a high court.
So limits the number of the frequency with which you give out ex-parte orders. Okay, let me bring you in, because we've got about 80 seconds, a minute or so left. But this is not limited to judges, though, is it? I mean, it's not just sanctioning the judges, this abuse of the system. Do you find that lawyers are also guilty?
I mean, absolutely. That's just what was on my mind. The Nigerian Bar Association needs to do more. Because a lot of senior lawyers, including Senior Advocate of Nigeria, are actually exploiting this opportunity. The ex-parte orders, as I said before, are very good instruments for helping to grant reprieve to those who feel that the world is about to collapse on them right now. But when you see senior advocates of Nigeria who are supposed to know the law better abusing these processes for political gains or any other pecuniary gains, then you wonder why the legal disciplinary committee of the Nigerian Bar Association is not doing so much. So both the National Judicial Council and the Nigerian Bar Association needs to up their game.
Sumner, thank you very much indeed. Sumner Sambo, Arise Director of News as well as Political Editor.